It's Colleen Schmidt from Divination Counseling Service. Today I wanted to do another presentation with the asteroids. So I thought what I would work with is the lunar eclipse chart of May 5th. I'm not necessarily doing this as a predictive exercise because the moon, the full moon, which is what the lunar eclipse is based on, is really much more about reflection. And what it's reflecting is what we're learning through the solar eclipse. That is a predictive chart. It will last several months. It goes several months coming in and it can have lingering effects. The full moon, however, the lunar eclipse, is more marking out what we are learning. It is the reflection of what's going on in the day, in the light, if you will, in the sun. And the moon is reflecting it back so that the sun can get a look at it. It's living it, that way it can get the reflection. And that's how we should always look at full moon charts. I particularly liked this lunar eclipse chart because it features a sun and moon in opposition, of course, but in the Aries point. So it's within that orb of the Aries point, which means that whatever we're discussing here today, whatever is reflecting for, say, me, is probably a similar reflection for you, regardless of where you live in the world, which is one of the things I found most interesting about this chart and thought it would be fun to do. The other thing is that what I'm trying to do is find ways to present the asteroids, but to do it in a way where you're gleaning something, not just the interpretation of that particular asteroid, but maybe how that particular asteroid is either affected by another planet or asteroid or trans-Neptunian. And eventually, I'd like to look at midpoints. I thought about doing one or two midpoints today with asteroids because just like planets and trans-Neptunians, they too work from a place of the they converse. The word I'm looking for, conversations. So they have conversations just like everything else in the chart. And one of the ways that I became very interested is my teacher, and she still does it today. She has a newsletter called, I think it's Tools of the Trade, but it's Toot. And basically in Toot, which really has been around, I think, since the 70s. I believe that's how long she's been doing this. But what she does in there a lot of times is go with the Aries point and then begin to look at prevalent midpoints so that we could, look for these things in our life and begin to have a more subtle ability with these asteroids, which is what my goal is. So my goal is to make it so the asteroids are accessible to everyone and that all astrologers would have access to information regarding these asteroids. Now, there's not a lot of us that are doing what I'm doing, putting them out there, so to speak. There's a lot of astrologers, however, professional astrologers, who use them. So I don't want to downplay that they're not being, they're being used. The problem is that the way they're being used and who they're being used by are not necessarily people that are going to do a YouTube channel. I mean, that's the best way to put it. I think I've looked every so often for asteroid work out there, and there really isn't a lot. Maybe the big four, just in case you don't know: Sirius, Pallas, Juno, and Vesta. Now, they also have other names. They are two asteroids that would be Hera, Minerva. So Hera / Juno, Minerva is / Pallas, Hestia / Vesta, and what did I miss? Oh, Demeter / Ceres. So you may find a lot for those, but I'm just really itching to get more people to look at and there are, the Swiss ephemeris is out there where you can look this stuff up. There is a software program. There used to be that the person who developed it passed away, so I'm not sure if it was called Ceres, Ceres, yes, Ceres. And unfortunately, Peter passed away. So I'm not sure about that one. I work with Mark Pottinger, who actually, once they're named, he kind of puts them out there. Then he has ephemerises on them. You can go in and basically he gives you discs. And then ultimately, I've been with him so long and I use so many that I will go into his site and kind of upload some of the new ones. So, or all of the new ones if I can. So, in any event, I please be aware that these things are accessible to anyone who is interested in studying the asteroids. I think the Swiss ephemeris is free. So that's one. An Astrodienst might use the Swiss ephemeris. So I'm not really sure because I have my own software and I'm not real good about going out and checking up on the software. So with that said, today what I'm going to do is look at first the angular asteroids. Now this would be for the chart of Washington, D.C. I still want to stay with this concept because learning how to read things angularly is very important to learning the asteroids in a more subtle way. So being able to play with them as they fall in the chart and they converse with each other from angle to angle. Then I would like to, as always, move into the chart itself. And what I would like to look at is the Aries point / sun moon axis and how they're all working together in this particular lunar eclipse. And then look at the asteroids that are making an appearance in particularly the Aries point, which is the sun moon axis. So with that said, let's jump in and start looking at the angles of the chart. And as I said, this will be done for Washington, D.C. I apologize to all the people who are the chart changes, but my recommendation would be to do a chart for the lunatation in your area and then repeat my process, but you would be working with different asteroids and planet points, but it would still be, it's a really fun exercise. So here we have the chart. You know, the first thing that I look at is, of course, when I look at these angles, is the proximity to things like the moon and the sun. And I did want to point out that at 22 degrees of Taurus, 12 minutes, and Scorpio, to 22 Scorpio, 12 minutes, you have both the sun and the moon. So they are in not only the Aries point, but they are in one of the main axes of the Washington, D.C. chart, which I felt was very, very interesting because, and I'm just going to review this, when working with angles in this way, you can go up to 10 degrees in order to find what is aspecting other angles. So as I look at the moon, I know it's in opposition to the sun, but it gets even more accented in the chart because it is falling within that axis, if you will, right in that axis. Now, in the case of 2212, the sun is 14, so it's only in by 2 degrees. I have a saying that I think that the stronger the degrees, like the less degrees between, the stronger it becomes with the axis. But I can't say that it works that way all the time because can't say that I've not experienced it the other way. So you really kind of depends on what's going on in your personal charts or what's coming along in the event chart you might be comparing it to. But I thought, point that out right away, that not only do we have a sun-moon opposition, but the sun is on the midheaven and the moon is on the IC. So that was the very first thing that I thought was really interesting in terms of our reflection. And just simply put, it is reflecting of our standing in the world. So what we're reflecting is coming from who we are, our roots, the basis of who we are as people. Does the sun in the midheaven, does where you stand, your future, your career, your direction, your social standing, does it reflect you? And I think that that's going to be true regardless, but I thought for the East Coast, how interesting. With all the things we have going on politically, how interesting. So I thought that was a really, really interesting point, and I wanted to make it. So going on from there, a couple other interesting points to make. We have a moon Poseidon here, and it literally is 17 minutes of orb. Wow. Now, what does that mean? Okay, so let's look at Poseidon, the trans-Neptunian. When you're looking at Poseidon, you're looking at, and this is for anyone who's studying Uranian, because you have to study Uranian to work with asteroids. It's a kind of a prerequisite. All of my teachers were Uranian astrologers, and then I specialized with others, but just to FYI. So as we begin to delve into this, and we see the moon and its conjunction to Poseidon, if we're looking at ourselves individually, we would have to ask the question, how affected are we by propaganda? How affected are we by the truth? How are we affected by the concept of enlightenment and awakening, whatever that means, okay? So I'm not even talking in political terms. Let them have their vocabulary. I'm talking in a bigger universal sense. When we're looking and this is our reflection. When we're reflecting on what is going on around us, whether it's political, whether it's at our job, our careers, whether it's in our personal lives, we have to ask ourselves, how affected have we been by our education, our belief system, propaganda? We have to ask those questions because there's a lot playing out. You know, it's no surprise that we've had a lot of media upsets here in the United States, particularly since our media is kind of high profile. Okay, I'm just going to leave it at that. And I mean in the world. And I kind of feel that it was no accident, no coincidence, if you will, that the moon is doing a lunar eclipse dancing on Poseidon. We really need to look at those people we listen to every day because they affect us and our psyche. And we have to learn what that means. And I think this is interesting because it shows the shakeup, all of which is affected by the midheaven axis to the IC. So there's your Uranus. There's your shakeup. Okay, you know, it's you can look at this in several ways. How does the media affect us? But how does the idea of personal freedom also affect us? So this is all going to be, you know, First Amendment. We can say whatever we want type thing. No, you can't really do that. And that's what everybody's finding out because that has affected our psyche, our emotions, who we are. Now, this little scenario is playing out everywhere in all the ways that it can. So what I'm asking is for you to check it even on a personal level. Okay? I'm doing a lot more. I'm somebody who lives like a hermit, but I've been connecting more with other astrologers. I'm taking a class, I'm attending lectures, I'm doing a lot of things because I can. I am still a 12th house sun, but it's a Uranus sun. See? Moon to Poseidon. It is astrology also. It's also done through the computer. There's your Uranus sun. I'm freer because of. I'm freer to deal because of. So that's my own personal experience. I very mundane, but I think all of us can look at things that way. So that's all I'm saying about that. So we move on because I just had to take up some time for that. And I just want to go through, as I say, the asteroids that are 10 degrees at the angles. And for today's purposes, I'm only going to use for this the ones we can see. Yes, I have my paper. I could tell you everything that's between 17 degrees of Leo and 7 degrees of Virgo, but it could overwhelm you if you're new. So why don't we just stick to the ones for now that I have glyphs for? So just like, okay, remember now we're going from 17. So none of this stuff at 13, okay, the hubris, the fates, the hubris. And I think it's funny to have hubris in connection with Lilith because Lilith represents what we keep being drawn back into. Like we just like these repeatable patterns, like we even know it's a bad habit, we're trying to break it, but we keep going back. Repeatable patterns, we do them in our life. Astrologers look at repeatable patterns in people's charts all the time. Okay, it's the places where we continue to repeat our steps, whether it's good for us or not. Usually it's not, because it's something we're trying to move past. So we're not going to look at that, at least not in this chart. Your chart, I don't know. But what I am going to look at in this chart is that Sappho, and I'm going to look at Sisyphus, and just very briefly, let's look at keywords. Sappho is bonding. It's the people who bond. Okay, so you bond with people where you have a common interest or a common goal. You might not even really have to always like the person. I'm going to put this so a little loud. I do live in the city. It gets loud out there. So basically, just getting back to this, the Sappho keywords, and so we know that it's bonding. Now, I attended recently a very interesting lecture, but you know, I still come out with um, this person that I took the lecture with was associating Sappho with a lot of like the sex industry um, um, and sexual, like, you know, maybe even gay relationships because they're often people of the same sex. But I'm going to go one better. After listening to his lecture and already having worked with it for 20 years, 20 some years. No, I lie, 30 years. Oh my God. I don't even want to think about it. Sappho actually is this not, how do I put this, not intimate concept. Now you're saying, well, then how could it be, you know, people, because there's a quality. I think about how his name was Bill Meridian, and basically he talked about like the sex industry. Well, it's so impersonal the way the whole thing is. Okay, even though it's about sex, it's really, really impersonal. Now, I can't really say that to a gay relationship, for example. So there would be other things in the chart that might play with that. But I would have to say that I still think Sappho is about bonding in more of an impersonal nature. So I'm going to stick to that. Sappho was a poet. They say she was promiscuous. Some say she was a lesbian. But I kind of think that part of her relationships were about her art. So there's where I say it goes more impersonal. See what I mean? That's what I'm referring to. So hopefully that was helpful. The next asteroid I want to talk about is Sisyphus. And Sisyphus is this little guy, this little man with like looks, but basically it's rolling that ball uphill. And you know, Sisyphus gets it up so far and bam, comes back down again. So you get the idea with Sisyphus that things have to be done over again. All right. So there could be an element of things that have to be done over again, or they are referring to things being done over again. Now, I'm going to give you a really strange example here. in the United States, they think there's going to be a rematch. I don't think so, so we'll wait and see. Between Biden, who will definitely be running because I don't think he can be primaried, but too soon to tell, but I doubt it. Biden and Trump. Okay. Now, we're going to do this again. Okay. And then you get these two, they're as impersonal as it gets. Okay. I don't think that they even much like each other. And I think that the only thing they have in common is they're both running for president. Does that help? Okay. So that was this cited example. I know that those of you out there will have better examples. Here are some other things that are going on. Now, I want to start conversing just for a second. So we have, I'm just going to take the two from the Leo side because, again, I don't want to be overwhelming. And I'm going to look at them from the angles. So we already talked about Uranus, Sun. I don't have to worry about it. They are not asteroids. I could do asteroids at this point, but let's just keep it simple. And one of the things that you get here is this idea that there is here we go, Sun Uranus that is here. It's like, I think it's surprising people. I think that the whole thing is, the whole thing is Uranus. It's weird. I just don't even have any other word for it. Odd. Okay. And it's the same two men. So Sun. Okay. The public is down here, and it is about how much the public knows, listens to. Okay. So we went through all of that in relationship to this. So let's come on over here. Okay. And so now I'm looking at the Leo side. Let's look at the Aquarius side. I could go because literally these two Pisces asteroids will be involved as well. I'm just going to go through this simply. And those, by the way, are Aragon and Terpsichore. Okay. So just to know the names, but I'm not looking at them. I'd rather, because we're 27, we could really go from this health asteroid, like this other equatorial thing here. And it's like the descendant, the equatorial descendant, and it's playing in there, but I think it's just a reminder, ascendant, descendant. And here we go with the well-being. The people are concerned about their well-being. Okay. A lot of people are going to look at that differently. I'm just going to throw it out there as a general keyword. Okay. It is a health asteroid. I think there are health aspects here. I think the idea of Joe Biden running is that they're worried about his health because he's older. I think the irony is Trump is only a year or two behind him. And if you ask me, he's in much worse health. Okay. So I think the health aspect plays in with both of them. I think the Eros is a health aspect. I think it's a heart. Okay, so it could be a concern about a heart. And now bear this in mind, guys, that somebody could be going through something with somebody else where they really are affected maybe by what's going around them, and it could literally land them with a cardio problem because you have both arrows and you have a very sharp square. And by the way, this don't matter where you live in the world. That sharp square between arrows and it also means expect some death, okay, heart attacks. But I'm kind of thinking just heart attack too, because not everyone dies from a heart attack. But I think that's a factor. The arrows question here could also apply to these two men running for president. Their heart health, but also the health of why they're running. Okay, what's the motivation? And I ask that more for Trump than I do for Biden. I know Biden's doing it because he thinks he has to. And quite frankly, right now, he might. Trump's doing it because, well, he's in trouble. So we have a lot of, stuff with that. So here we go with it's a vehicle. I had to get that in there. Okay. It's ornamental. It's ornamental. This whole thing is ornamental. I shouldn't use that instead of vehicle. It's ornamental. Okay. But do you see how you would definitely include all of these things in the conversation? So I don't, I, again, I want to add more asteroids. So hopefully it doesn't get to be too frustrating for, I'm not going to do a lot of conversation now. I really just want to talk about asteroids. We now have Isis, which is pieces. So from the ascendant, a tool to handling some of what's going on, to know that some things have to be done over again, especially for these two men. They're not young. I wouldn't want to do it, and I'm not as old as these guys. Okay, I wouldn't even, I'm thinking about now how I've increased my schedule just by taking on lectures. I'm listening. I'm not even working. So something to think about, right? Because these men are old. Is that, you know, they are taking on a lot, and the thing is they're saying that one of the ways in which to deal would be pieces. The other is that one of these two gentlemen is coming apart into pieces because he's got a lot of lawsuits, and they are coming in pieces. I do believe that what's interesting about this next asteroid, and look at how close it is to pieces, is the idea of Proserpina, which is that there are some things in life that we have to do it alone. Some things that some journeys we have to go on. I do know that I do believe in my heart that is how Biden feels. I do not believe he is running for president because he thinks it's going to be a feather in his cap. Because at this point in his life, I don't think he's looking for feathers. So I think it's a matter of saving the democracy. And he is very much invested in doing just that. So we have this withdrawal. Now, withdrawing may be another way, too, that both of these men handle this. Like, okay, I'll do a couple rallies, but then I got to call it off for a day or two. And so I wouldn't be surprised. Okay? So we have abundantia as well here. And, you know, again, there's so much going on that it may be wise to withdraw and do things in pieces. So they work as tools because they come in the ascendant. They are a part of the environment. So for some people, it may mean, and again, in this area, it could mean that they are only able to do things in increments because there could be withdrawals and doing things only on your own because there's just so many things happening. So the the D, because that's abundantia is what I put in for, so I have no glyph for it. And I have no glyph for the doo-doo, which is exactly what it is, which is crap. Okay, so there's too much crap. And I think that that's really what's going on for a lot of people right now. It's like there's so much crap going on in the world, and it doesn't matter who you are, where you live, none of it. There's so much going on right now that it behooves us to go it alone sometimes. Okay. Realize too that Isis is not just pieces, it's also siblings. So I wanted to throw that in there because for some of us, siblings will come to our attention. So as I move down, and I'm going to move down as to my next area, just to throw in a couple of asteroids here. We have, it really goes all the way out here past Artemis, which is this, it is Artemis, or is it, I want to say Artemis, it's not, it's the other one. And I don't have it written down. It's Anubis. It's the one that means dying, okay? Anubis. So there could be a concern where people are running around trying to find those things that might be dying, okay? It's not necessarily a literal death, by the way. So it could be a program that's not doing well, and it is a retrograde, so it could be just being aware of certain things, and you can look for them. because that's what, but it's also about the death of things. So it's like hunting out the end of things. It's also referring here with Psyche and Hildako. Okay. Psyche is an interesting. These are emotional woundings, ironically, down at the IC. And you got to ask yourself, why are we so susceptible to things that we hear, whether it be the truth or not? And why are we so gullible? Is it because possibly emotional wounding that we're still either coming off of some trauma and the whole world's been traumatized by COVID, that we're not able to speak up and speak out. Even if we know something isn't right, we are having a hard time speaking truth. And you have to ask yourself, what does that have to do with emotional wounding? But on the other hand, and I speak as somebody who has a strong psyche, and I know that it has several meanings. One of the meanings is that we could all be a little bit more intuitive right now. And what's really interesting is when people are intuitive, they're going to have a really hard time speaking out. They probably won't. So it's almost like you know what the truth is. You know what to do, but you're or what to say, but for some reason you are maybe fearful of reactions. So it sounds a lot like Fox News, doesn't it? So it's about fallout in terms of not knowing. So we're not going to say anything, or the way they got rid of Don Lemon. So there's this Psyche and Hidalgo running together, and they are both in this particular chart sitting around the IC, which is pretty interesting. Okay, so now just kind of, and I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not picking up anything that we can't see. I want to come over here. And remember, I had said to 17, and we did go through this, and I went all the way up to here. Well, we still had two more asteroids, because technically, even though it's out of sign, and it does weaken it, I have noticed that, but it's still there. Okay, so weakened maybe, but still there, definitely, is the Aragon and the Terpsichore. And it makes me wonder, okay, they're about 3 degrees apart. Well, really, they're about 2.5 degrees apart. And by the way, in Uranian, I'm sure you're going to run across this, 2.5 degrees, that's an orb. Meaning that even though I'm reading an angle where I could go up 10 degrees, if you live in California and you're looking at a different chart, this is still going to be in play. Okay? Just like a couple of the other things I've talked about. And this is self-destructive behavior that could be literally related to their own bodies. Okay? And we could throw that in with this whole presidential thing and how demanding this is going to be physically and how much it's going to. But I also look at it this way. Or we could look at it from the former guy who constantly sticks his foot in his mouth. How much self-destructive behavior, as these things begin to come out, is he going to put himself through? And then, how are people standing behind him, even though they seem to be at this point? But I don't think that's going to hold. So that's going to play out regardless, okay, that Aragon Terpsichore. So that was another reason why it was worth going over. The last part I want to cover on this before I go into the dial, because we could just keep doing this, is I want to talk about, we talked about the Sun and Uranus. But we didn't talk about, you got to realize this was huge. This goes all the way, Juna, Shiva, what was it? When I put the letters in, it's always, that's, okay, Alyssa, which is, again, more self-destructive action. We got self-destructive action in DC on 2 angles. So as a person who lives in the United States, and particularly someone on the East Coast, one of the things I can say from this chart is that I have to be stronger aware, not just that those people in DC are self-destructing, but that somebody around me might be self-destructive as well. So we're looking at that concept, and there's a lot of question. And this is so interesting because where this falls, and this is kind of like humiliation, Alyssa. It's kind of Alicia, I'm saying Alyssa, if I'm saying this correctly, is I think it's like a humiliation. She's one of the newer ones for me. And there's a question about that. Ironically, it does aspect the sun in this particular case. So it is about a questioning of a male, and that is all in here. So again, you look for humiliation. The humiliation is, I think, because you didn't question everything or you didn't speak out when you knew better. So now there's a question. And I like the fact that the question mark showed up when two anchors and an executive for media companies have all been released. Nobody talked about it yet. Dun, dun, dun. And so it's in the chart. Humiliation. Okay. Apollo tells us that this is a vehicle, and this is where vehicle comes in. So vehicle is in here. That's why I got mixed up. It's ornamental, and this is the vehicle that's being used. Okay? And social standing and the midheaven are right there. So that I just thought that was really interesting to have that there. It's very slow, and maybe it's like everything's happened so slowly. I've literally been watching Fox News in destructive mode since they started in '96 or whatever it was. I knew it was never allowed in my house ever. So I can't. I truly, it was a vehicle for the far right. Moderates would try to sell this, but I'm going to be honest with you. These are the people that want to disrupt democracy throughout the whole world. This is not moderate Republicans because they still believe in democracy. At least I hope they do, but I'm thinking they do. So it's a vehicle. It's a vehicle. And, Hecate here, remember we went down here to Psyche and we said our intuition is better. It's almost like having gone through so many things on an emotional level. And think about this on a personal level. So many traumas, post-traumatic stress disorder. And I don't care how young you are. I think these days, young people are by far living much more stressfully as young people than I did. Okay, I didn't have to worry about whether or not I was going to make it home from school every day. Okay, so the world in which we've created for them, which is very sad. And so you're looking at this psyche, this wounding, but how has that educated us? I mean, let's be honest, these kids went through a lot. They're going to make damn good politicians. They are going to, I do know this and I predict it, but I've waited for these kids my whole life. They will take us in a better direction. So I definitely wanted to point that out. I also feel Diana is in there. Now remember, this is Anubis, but Diana is also in there. So the hunter-prey thing. Now for some of us personally, it could be animals. So there's a lot that it can be related to. Okay, so I wanted to go through that. I wanted to go through it so that you get more asteroid keywords. Okay, so let's take a moment because it's so easy to do. And let's look at, oh, I was looking at Pluto. Let's look at, and you can see that, let's look at the Aries point. Oh, there it is. Okay, so I'm starting with the Aries point because very important to look at this. Look at this. Yeah, because you know why they're all there. Here it is, here it is, here it is. They're 2 minutes away from the Aries point. It's an incredible hit. So no one, and I repeat that, is escaping this lunar eclipse, which is a reflection. So it's kind of a good thing not to miss a reflection, I feel. So here what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go through the Aries points. Okay, first one, mentor, 0 degrees of Aries. Okay, are we looking for mentors? Have we found mentors? Because are we looking toward mentors? So just think about that. That's in there. Okay. We also have, so we're going to come down here. There is a win, but it's at 14:17. So it's about 45 minutes off of 43 minutes to be exact. And so we know there's going to be a wind through endings at 1424, but also at 1431, there's a lot of pretending. Okay. There's a lot of pretending, period. I'm amazed at some of the stuff that I'm seeing, and people knowing that things are lies but continuing to repeat them. That's a very good right there. So there's this axis. I'm going to stay in this axis for a moment before I go to the next axis. Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Take that back. Wait, I'm not looking in the right place. I knew that was, it's erase that last part. Those are not the asteroids that are there. That's actually, and I might as well just throw this out there for anyone that is interested, that is all occurring at 14 to 15 degrees of Aries. Okay, so that is actually happening right around, in this chart, the vertexual ascendant, I believe that, not 16, 14 would be right up in here. There we go. Oh, it's endings. Atropos is there. And I did say Atropos was there. So it's in this area. It's related to this. So there's an ending of something that's ornamental. Okay. So remember, we talked about ornamenta. So sorry about that. I want to keep going instead of, here we have, so I'm going to go back to the axis, which is here. And you see everything that's there. And it's a lot. We've already talked about a lot of this. Now I'm back there. One of the things I'm going to tell you is you're going to have some problems. Some of us, and I'm one of them, are probably going to have problems sleeping. You're probably already starting to have problems sleeping. Okay? With so much going on and so much activity during the day. Okay? That we are, many of us, very, very affected by what is going on. And I can also tell you, let me find my place here. Boy, it's so easy to get lost. I'm lost. It's because there's so much in certain areas. Here we go. The moon is the only thing in Scorpio that's down there. So the Scorpio. So it's not only, it's opposite. So our inability to rest at night is accentuated. If you sleep during the day, you might have better luck. No, it's going to be much worse. I can also tell you there's a sense of nostalgia that's going to be going on as a result of all these changes. And I can also tell you that there is going to be, there's going to be something about internet and media. Okay, so I think it's the internet is going to come into play. And I think that, one of the things we might be hearing is that some of these people that have been let go might be finding themselves doing what they do, but maybe doing it on the internet. So that's that. Let me see if I've got anything else there. There is, okay. There is a asteroid called Champ, which is also about, humiliation. And it forms a midpoint at the Aries point with Pallas. Now, I know I said I would not talk about this, but it is showing up. I wanted to see if I could make sure I got that right. Yeah, because it's Leo. Oh no, it's not. I lie. It's with Pluto. Remember, I said I was looking at Pluto. I got Pluto notes on here. Shame on me. No, transformations are happening. That's the Pluto midpoint. There will be transformations in politics as a result of, and that is true. Okay, so that is very true. All right, and that's Pluto. That's about the transformation because of the humiliation. This is very humiliating. So, with our media problem. But let me go on. I have everything marked off, but unfortunately, I just got a little too crazy here. Partnerships come into play here, but since Sappho showed up, I don't want to. I want to say that it's partnerships that are more not personal, impersonal. Okay. Yeah, that's not, yeah, yeah. I'm just checking through, making sure I got everything. Where's, oh yeah, it's not. Okay. Yeah, so I did get them for this axis. Problem is I was playing too much and I got extra stuff on there. So now I want to go to the other axis. We got other information, maybe hopefully not too much overwhelming because I really was crazy on this chart. Maybe I shouldn't have been too crazy. Okay, I want to go by the minute because I want to go exact. Oops. Okay, so at 22:30 or at 7:30, this is the next axis I'm looking at. No surprise to see the Earth, Poseidon, Moon, and Sun all with Aries, all at this point, which only collaborates. It's a collaboration or confirmation, better word, that we definitely have an Aries point, Sun, and Moon. I like the ascendant Jupiter, but because it does give us a sense of optimism and glee. And I think as some of these things are coming out, there is a bit of glee. The Hades node is connections with either the sick or connections from the past, maybe connections that are deteriorating, which is another way to look at that. I like this, just to go through this because it's here. Hephaestus is here. Unlikely partnerships, unlikely relationships, odd couples will come to your attention. But realize that that can be anything in play. And here's another one. Niobe is children, but it's also pride. So some of these odd couples could be together for pride or out of pride or the result of pride or the fact that these partners are so mismatched, especially in the business situation, that it could come out to be a stroke against somebody's pride, a strike against. So I did want to point those out. But let's look at, and here we go again with Colleen, hopefully not messing this up too bad. I did go through Hephaestus, which we already spoke about. Over on the other side, Niobe, already spoken about. So we already have been through those. I think the makeover's in, it's only in by about 50 minutes, but the makeover is in this axis as well. And the reason why that's good is because it kind of goes along with some of the other stuff that we've already talked about. Sisyphus, for example, a makeover. So it does make sense. We don't have anything there. We don't have anything. We talked a little bit about body image in the chart. That's terpsichore. Terpsichore, just to kind of reiterate, because I don't know if I ever went through the keywords there, is about body image. It's also body language. Athletes, dancers, but it can be anything where you can note by somebody's body language how they're feeling. And we can right now we have both Psyche and Hecate, as I just talked about in the last chart, in line with each other. And that's going to be true regardless of where you live. So thankfully, that's a good thing for us to have. As far as, yes, I already talked about that. I've been through this. This is awesome. Money's an issue, but it's more like money from the past. So, and it could be even us being nostalgic about money, but it can also be just things that were related to money that have come to our attention that could be related to the past. I think we got them. Yep, I got it. Got it. Got it. Gotta love it. Yeah. So that's all I really have. So again, I could go on and on. As you've noticed, I did some midpoints for Pluto. But I thought we would just stick with the main axis where it affects people the most. I'm really interested in Pluto right now. because the emergence in Aquarius has been very visible around the world. Now it is going to migrate back by June, but I'm just so curious on every chart to look at it, and it might be something that some of you out there might also be interested in. So with that said, I'm going to leave you as I always do. I'm wishing you only happy readings. Oh, and thank you for watching the video.